Okay. So, to kind of start off, I want you to underline the word integer. I know you've heard it before, but you may not know what the heck it means, right? So let's go back to when you were 2. All right? When you were 2, or when you were, depending on how, sometimes the parents, when their babies are born, they're like, I want my kid to count to 10 first. And so when they're 6 months old, and they can't even make any sense, they're going to count. It's just crazy. So when you first learned numbers and you learned how to count, what number did you start with? 1. You started with 1, right? Okay? So we're going to talk about 3 sets of numbers. The first set, we're going to call natural numbers. And sometimes you'll hear people refer to natural numbers as the counting numbers. They mean the same thing, so just know that you could use them either way. And you know what? That starts with 1, 2, 3, and then it can go as high as you can go, right? And if you're 18 months and you can count to 20, then that's fantastic. You're a genius. Okay? The second set of numbers are called whole numbers. Okay? Now, whole numbers include all of the counting numbers, so 1, 2, 3. But the whole numbers includes one number that isn't a counting number. 0. Very good. Like when you first learned to count and you set up your toy blocks or your stuffed animals, your parents didn't say, okay, count this first one. That's 0. Then 1 and 2. It doesn't make sense, right? So 0 is not a counting number, but you know what? It is a whole number. And I know you know what the word whole means. I want you to picture the word whole, like picture ordering pizza. Open that box of pizza and that steam is coming out of it and there's not one slice taken out of there, is it? Okay? As soon as you take that first slice out and eat it, it's not a whole pizza anymore. It's a fraction of a pizza. It's a decimal, right? So whole numbers mean no decimals or fractions, no parts, which is how we like it, right? So no decimals or fractions, okay? That's what whole numbers mean. And 0 is a whole number. But you know what? 2 is a whole number and a natural number. So the third set of numbers we're going to talk about is integers. And that's what we're going to focus on in Unit 3. And I know you know what they mean, but you know what? The integers include 0. They include 1, 2, and 3, and every number in that direction. But they also include what? The negative whole numbers, though. So -1, -2, -3, and then this time the dots go this way, right? Because it's every number forever to infinity in that direction. So that qualifies and counts as integers, okay? Now, think back to when you were, first grade, okay? You had your name tag on your desk, right? And you had a little pencils and your name written in the nice cursive or handwriting, and on it was a number line, right? Where did that number line start for you in first grade? It started at 0, probably, right? So do you remember what grade you were in? I don't know the answer to this. The first time you ever saw a negative number. Think about that. Like the concept of, you try to explain to a kindergartner what a negative number means, they have no clue what you're talking about. Was it third, maybe? Fourth? Okay. So at some point then, your number line expanded, and basically you had the list of integers. So I want you to think about it. When you think of a number line, you're thinking of integers. You want to know a nice version of how to remember an integer? It's a positive or a negative whole number. Isn't that all that it is? When I say integers, you know what I think some people think? Oh, it's only negatives. Is 4 an integer? Yeah. It doesn't have to be negative to be considered an integer. It just includes the negatives. So, tell me all the kinds of numbers that 10 is. 10 is natural or counting, a whole number, and an integer. Tell me all the kind of numbers that 0 is. A whole and an integer. And tell me all the numbers categories that -5 is. Just an integer. Do you understand? Okay? So, what we're going to start to talk about is how these integers look on a number line. And we're going to kind of have to, do you remember doing something like this? And in that circle, you had to put either this symbol or that symbol. Hey, listen, it seems easy. Sometimes it's really not. Like if I were to say which number's bigger, I know instinctively you look at 8 and 8's bigger than 6. But that's not 8 and 6. It's negative 8 and negative 6. So when you're comparing two negatives, how do you know which one's bigger? Yeah, the one that's closer to 0, right? So if I had to look at a number line and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 6, negative 8. Oh, negative 6 is greater than negative 8 because it's closer to 0, so I would put that there. Got it? We're not doing that. You did that in 5th grade and 6th grade. This is 7th grade. We got to get into adding these integers. But before we do that, we have to just kind of talk about what the heck integers really are, okay?